Hello everyone, it's Eddie. Welcome back for a new video, and today we're going to talk about Stranger Things. I'm going to start by talking about the Upside Down, the Mind Flyer, Vecna, then the characters, and then the Queerbait, because there is indeed Queerbait and I'm going to talk about it. For the general sense, this season was just underwhelming. They promoted this season as something that was really bringing closure, every answers, but at the end, they played it safe, and it was extremely underwhelming to watch because you knew that when someone was about to die, they were not really dying. So, even at the end, they didn't really commit to Eleven's death. So, to me, she's dead. But there's this interpretation that you can have where she's not. And it's underwhelming. Choose. Is she dead or is she not? Steve should have died. Nancy should have died. Jonathan should have died. So many people should have died. And it's not a question of wanting characters to be killed just for them to be killed. It's that the narrative structure of the show put them into situations where they're supposed to die and they just magically doesn't. It's a lot of plot armor just for them to not die. And by not wanting to create a Game of Thrones ending, they created a Game of Thrones ending on the other side. It's like, wow. I have to clap because this is one of the best fumbled finally of the history. Right alongside Game of Thrones, Umbrella Academy, and now we have a new category called Stranger Things. 10 years of a show for it to end like that? Oh my god. You don't have to dislike the ending. You just have to realize that they did fumble a lot of the narrative structure that they brought into the show. That is something you have to accept. My problem with the Upside Down and Vecna and the Mind Flyer is how underwhelming the whole plot is. The ending, what the Upside Down is, what is this dimension, the abyss, what really is Vecna, why is he here for real, why did it take Will, all those answers are just weak, they're weak. All those answers were portrayed as something in the show that was going to be a grand reveal because the Upside Down is something big, because the abyss, who is brought in a really big way from season 4 to season 5, actually is very underwhelming, easy to access, and they wanted to do a lot of things with not a lot of times, and they should have cut those parts off if they wanted to really take part into the explaining of the abyss, explaining of the Upside Down, etc. I find the wormhole disappointing. In a way that, yes, we've been talking about science for a very long time, but like I said in my volume 2 video, they should have gone into this idea of researching what the Upside Down was with the laboratory or with the characters. They should have really made a plot in the show of them trying to understand what was going on. Here it's just extremely underwhelming. Steve and Dustin fight and he crashes into something, opens the door, takes a book, read the book, and the whole answer is in there. That's how you bring the answer to the Upside Down? With a book found after one fight? After 10 years? I feel like season 5 as a standalone, I'm going to talk about the characters later on, that I realized that their writing is not a chain. It's individual seasons with the end goal, and it creates a narrative structure that is very weak and crumble easily around inconsistencies. Vecna is way too easily defeated, exactly like how the Mind Flyer is way too easily defeated. You should have unfolded the whole plot slowly through the season out and make them understand what was going on. Instead of doing that, you just made punches. This happens. This happens. This happens. This happens. You can do that for a few plot twists, but doing that for each major point of the show makes it underwhelming. Hey, that's not how you write a story. It's too quick, it's too underwhelming, it's too easy. And when I say it's too easy, it's too easy. I feel like they stretched the wrong plot. They put a lot of time in some plots, like Holly's plot, too long. And Nail is a very great actress, but her plot is too long. You cannot introduce a new main character in the last season of your show that is supposed to explain everything in that world. It's a, let's say it's a 50-50, which is okay, it's an interesting plot, but you should have introduced that in other seasons. The Mind Flyer. The Mind Flyer is the big boss of everything, okay? The Mind Flyer should have been the main villain. Fight is like 10 minutes, and it's easy. It's the same fight as we saw in season 3, with two forms that kind of looks the same. It's very similar. That's not great. And when I say it's not great, it's not that it cannot be impressive. It's not that you don't, like, you're forced to not like it. What I mean is that they took 5 seasons to build up to a climax, and the climax is at the same length, the same height as season 3. For a climax, it has to be bigger than season 3. It has to be something bigger, grander, enormous, gigantic. It's not. It's the same way of fighting. It's the same way of doing it. It's reusing the same plot all over again. The Mind Flyer is an entity that should have been brought on as something almost impossible to fight. You should have made the characters be tortured by memories. Fake memories. You should have made the characters struggle. You didn't make them struggle. And yes, 11 has this impressive fight that Will saves her at the end. And it's like, I knew the second 11 was fighting Vecna alone and Will was not there, and it was still not there, still not controlling Henry, I knew that it was gonna come at the very end to save Elle. It was very obvious. And when I can predict the end of a fight so easily, it's bad. It's really bad. I should be on the edge of my seat, but I'm not. For finally, to not be on the edge of your seat. So now let's move on to the characters. The character's arc served no point. Usually in a story, when you create a character, they are a plot device. They are not real people. They are not here to act as if they were real. They are a character that it's kind of like a doll, and you create a story for your Barbie, for your doll. You create her story that has a start and a finish. That's how a character is created. Characters are not real. Characters are only dolls to be played with and plot devices. But in a story, in a show, a character needs to have a storyline. Needs to have a line that is clear about their personality, what are their purpose on the show. We don't have that. What they did to structure the character in each season and the seasons in general is to take, for example, season 1, this and that happens. Will does that, Mike does that, Elle does that. Season 2, that happens. They make some links to the season before, but they are not following a storyline. And they did that again for all of the seasons. And season 5, there's no actual character storyline. You can't analyze the character, is what I'm trying to say. They used a Sidewinder trope without even knowing how to use a Sidewinder trope. A Sidewinder trope is never used to say that the guy who made the painting is has unreciprocated feelings. And that's the first time I've ever seen in my life a Sidewinder trope used like that. And like I said earlier, I'm pretty sure that they didn't even know it was a Sidewinder trope, and they just wanted to have Will go through heartbreaks and heartbreaks and heartbreaks in tragedy. Let's talk about the tragedy. Will as a character has suffered. Through the whole course of the show, what we see of Will is someone that is terrified, sad, is strong, of course, but he's the one that is the target, is the one that gets hurt by his friends, especially by Mike, etc., etc. There's no fluctuation, there's no climax to him being like that. I mean, yes, in Sorcerer he gets his powers, but the powers go nowhere. So there's no climax of him being able to finally be happy. We have none, because in episode 7 we have him completely crumbling down after Vecna showed him those visions. So there's no actual storyline leading anywhere. It's like curved storyline, and what they wanted to say was Will is rejected. If they wanted Will to have a rejection arc where he moves on and he ends up being happy, he should have been rejected in season 2 or season 3, and then make him show to move on and to do something else. Mike's and Will's story being so intertwined and then going nowhere by the end is unsatisfying for everyone. We don't want a character's identity to be only about queerness, only about acceptance. We want that character to have a storyline other than being queer. And that storyline was him being so connected to the Upside Down. That storyline existed in season 2 and with their hand on the back in season 3 and season 4, but it went nowhere. The storyline was not satisfying. It went nowhere. We all thought that in season 5, the ones who were going to understand Elle the most would be Callie and Will. And they would grow and bond together. None of that happened. Instead, they made Callie be looking like a super villain when she never was. You guys made it seem like she was a traitor. Like she was going to be a bad person and that she was playing with Henry when it was never the case. Why make her character like that when she taught Elle so much? And I understand her after being tortured for so long that she is depressed, etc. But the way they made it seem, it was not in the, oh, she's depressed. It was, oh, she maybe is a bad person. Wow, that is odd, and I would say it's a bit racist. And yes, I do believe that. I'm going to make a video specifically about the writing of the characters and how a lot of things are rooted in misogyny, racism, and homophobia, because I feel like we need to tackle that. We need to talk about the fact that they used a lot of stereotypes for everyone who was not white and straight. What? Why didn't give Will a rejection arc season 2, season 3? And season 3 and season 3, or season 4 and season 5, a new character that Will was falling in love with, which he would find straight in the moment where he needed it. Why didn't you write that? Why did you write Will's love for Mike for so long for it to end up like that? Queerbait, exactly. Robin and Vicky are just here to say that queerbait cannot happen. Because by the end of the story, when Will is finally rejected, well, he's not really rejected, he rejects himself by realizing it's not reciprocated, Vicky disappears. Oh, that's weird. Vicky disappears the moment where they're finishing Will's storyline. Isn't that weird to you? Because it's weird to me. They never actually really cared to show you a queer storyline. What they cared about was playing with you. And before you tell me that there's no queerbaiting, in the marketing, queerbaiting is a marketing technique. And they used it. Proof. On screen. To you. Right there. They have used Byler. And themselves, when they talk about Mike and Will, they talk about Byler. Meaning, they've seen a lot of stuff. If the goal was always to be rejection and they ended up never making any signs that Mike was rejecting, that reciprocating Will, and it was always supposed to be clear that Mike was rejecting Will, why did they never talk about Will being rejected? They never talked about Mike rejecting Will because the goal was always to stay in the line of, oh, maybe Mike will reciprocate and we're all mixing up Will and Mike's story. Mike and Will are always together. Will they, won't they? And that's what they did. That's what they used. That's the technique they use. And yeah, queerbait. That's queerbait. They use it in the marketing and it's just something you guys have to accept. It's marketing, it's queerbait, there's no new episode. They're not grand genius writers, absolutely not. The best episode of the series is written by other people, not by the Duffers, and there's a reason for that. I kind of talked about how the Montclair was portrayed as something very grand and big, but at the end is looking very weak. But there's a lot of things that are not answered. Why is Vecna so obsessed about the clocks and the time? Why the 12 kids, specifically 12? Why was Will taken exactly? Because he's weak and easily reshaped? But then why did you make a parallel between Henry and Will? If Will did not have to fight against the evil to become evil just like Henry did. It's an unnecessary parallel that goes nowhere and leads people to be confused at the end. It's a plot that is not answered. Why are they so similar? They're so similar for the fun of it. I mean, Henry was probably the first one to be used to reshape the world. But why make them so similar? Why make them have the same birthday? I mean, they forgot Will's birthday so many times that I think they even forgot, well, I think they forgot about it when creating Henry too. That could have been a possibility. The plot holes of Will's birthday. He's not 11 when he's kidnapped, he's 12. Those are little details. It's very little details that makes the show inconsistent. For example, the state of the Upside Down that comes from very toxic to you can go and walk around freely because Vecna is not in there anymore, so you can go around it. It's weak. It's a weak plot. Even if Vecna and the Mind Flayer are not in the Upside Down, they should have still made the hive mind active in the Upside Down. They still should have bought Demogorgons, Demobats, Demodogs. They still should have made creators happen, fight happen. It should have been this easy. They should have really stayed with their season 1 idea of the Upside Down being a toxic environment, not a place where you can freely walk around. The same way for the Abyss. They should have just been able to go to Vecna's dirt, to go to Vecna's lair like that, and the Mind Flayer's body like that so easily. They had no problems. Vecna was not ready for a surprise encounter. Where are the Demogorgons? They are neither in the Upside Down and neither in the Abyss. Where are they? They are freely walking around in the real world, but they can go around in dimensions. They can open doors. I feel like they didn't explore that idea of Will and Henry having a connection enough. They didn't go into Henry's backstory enough. Why it was never addressed that Joyce, Hopper, and Henry all went to high school together. The November 6th thing was not happening. Yes, we know it's because Will was taken on the 6th, and there's this date, but why is it so important to Henry? Why is it so important to the Mind Flayer for it to be the 6th? It's because 6 plus 6 equal 12? 12 kids? Why do I have to try to guess? I shouldn't have to be guessing if the finale is supposed to tie all the things together. I just want to say that in the first shadow, the November 6th was also the day where Joyce's made her play in high school. Why is this date so relevant? Why is the 6th so relevant in the story? Why did they write the 6th to be so relevant? Is this something, again, that they didn't think of? They just took a random date and it happened to be the November 6th? Could Jane suddenly put people in trances like Henry? Why could she bring Mike's into his mind and Mike? Since when can she do that? I mean, yes, she trained, but we see none of that. We saw none of that. It's weird. It's a show about Will. Is it a show about Will? No, it's not. It's not a show about Will. You made him have no relevance at the end. Yes, he stops Vecna, but he has no relevance. He's not even fighting the Mind Flayer, which was their original plan. They had wrote down in their whiteboard, Will fighting the Mind Flayer. Why did you not make him fight the Mind Flayer? Why make such a big deal about Will's power only to use them 2 times? They should have introduced Will's power so long ago in season 3. Directly after season 2, he has powers, and through the seasons he has to find a way to use them and understand them. That would have been great. Them appearing like that, and his whole arc being all about his sexuality. Who are you taking us for? So all of them made it true? Oh well, that's ended. Cool, let's go back home. What? Let's look at the real plot holes that I missed. Well, part of the hive mind, if the brain dies, the body dies. Yet it was completely fine. Nothing wrong. Satanic panic, literally any political issues never being addressed after the setup for it at the end of season 4. Elle, how did she recognize his will? We have to make theories about that. Like I listed, there's a lot of inconsistencies. There's a lack, I keep saying it, but there's a lack of narrative structure. If you go by deciding that the Upside Down is somewhere dangerous, it should be dangerous at the very end too, and not a place where you can freely roam around. So you can still enjoy the finale, there's nothing wrong with enjoying it, but you still have to acknowledge that there's critics to make. And a lot of people are going to come on my comments saying, oh, well, you don't like it because of Balor. I don't like it because the way they made Will's storyline. It's not about Mike and Will being a couple, it's about making Will's storyline like that, reusing the same gross plot as there's always been for queer people, which is them, the whole thing by the end is them being queer and having to accept themselves, washing down the character completely to their sexuality. It's just really inconsistent, and they use this plot as a way to bait people. That's it. There's no explanation. It's unsatisfying for you, it's unsatisfying for me. And the whole thing was, he didn't need to end up with Mike. He just needed to have someone he was in love with, reciprocating his feelings, making the speech about the signals and the avalanche, which is a scene especially for baiting, to be about a real scenario, a real ending where Will witnesses the signals or witnesses the avalanche, but we don't have that. I just want to say that everything we've seen about Balor has nothing to do with us being delusional. You know, they can lie in interviews. They can lie and say it was never the point, but it has always been the point. They created that. And I see that even more now that I analyzed Hitted Rivalry, which is a video that is going to come out after this one in a few days, week. After watching and analyzing Hitted Rivalry, this is where you realize the most that they used the same filmmaking and the same camera setting and the same frames for Will and Mike. They really set that couple up for it to be down to nothing, but small enough for people who don't see it to not see it, big enough for people who know about filmmaking, story writing, etc. to pick up on it and to be baited about it. I don't know, guys. They are just... I don't know why they did that. I don't understand why. I don't want to understand. I don't even want to think about it. That's the end of the video. I don't want it to be too long. I'll have to cut a lot of parts, but I hope you had a great time. I hope you'll have a great day, night, whatever. Don't forget to subscribe, and bye!